Welcome on in, everybody, to the live stream. This is the Ether's Elephant live stream. I'm joined by Jim Bennett on a news-filled day, a sad day for the country in a lot of ways. And we're going to have to talk about it a little bit, but we want to keep things very positive as we can. As you saw from the title, you know, we're all about trying to be peacemakers. President Nelson is always talking about being peacemakers, and that's what we want to do. I think the world needs a lot of that right now. So here's what we're going to see in today's show. The Big Ear Bulletin is what we're going to start with in light of the breaking news. We're going to start with the breaking news, and we're going to talk just briefly about Charlie Kirk and the reaction there. Then we'll get to the Through Elephant's Eyes segment. So Jim Bennett recently took the LDS Compass quiz, and if you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. And we're going to look at, we're going to talk to him about his thoughts on that. And then we'll get to Trunk Treasures. We're going to talk about Is Your Faith Inconvenient? And comment reaction to some of the stuff people have been saying about the LDS Compass quiz. But Jim, thank you so much for being here, especially in light of this tragic news.
Yeah, I've told my wife that I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm actually getting threats. I shouldn't laugh, but there is nothing. This hits close to home in a way that I don't know if it's just because I live a half an hour away from UVU and I have sons that go to BYU, but this feels different from other sorts of tragedies like this. This feels like a tinderbox,
yeah,
a powder keg. And I really am so grateful for the emphasis the church is placing on peacemaking. You know, I'm so grateful for the article that appeared in Time magazine just a couple of days ago that President Nelson wrote about peacemaking, that I think is really the sum total of his legacy. His peacemaker talk initially was, as far as I'm concerned, not just the best talk he's ever given, but perhaps the best, most inspired talk I have ever heard from a conference pulpit. And he summarizes all of that in the Time magazine article, and I'm really grateful for that. Elder Christofferson today, even before this tragedy, posted a video talking about peacemaking. And I think if you need evidence that these are men who are inspired of God, that's pretty compelling evidence to me.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's great to have a prophet in times like this, because my goodness, it's just gut-wrenching to see. I would encourage people not to watch any footage out there of what happened at UVU.
I really regret having seen it.
I do too. I saw too many angles of it, and I was just hoping and praying that somehow he was going to make it out. But like when you see the footage, it was like
it was very clear.
There's like no way.
There's no way.
And just, man, the heart just goes out to the family. And the scariest thing of all, I think, is just like, are we at a place in the country where we just can't talk anymore and disagree anymore? You know, can we just agree to disagree? Isn't that part of being a peacemaker, knowing that like people see things from different perspectives, and that's okay? You know, like let's just relax, calm down. Like, oh man, it's just frustrating.
Well, it's frustrating from all sides. I mean, anybody that is using this to push any sort of political agenda, and I'm seeing people on the left and the right trying to do that. I just think, you know, this is a family now that has lost their breadwinner, 2 young children, a new widow who I don't even know if she's 30 years old. I mean, this is not the moment to settle political scores. And I think, and the other thing is that we don't know who did this or why they did this. And people are making all these assumptions about what's happening. And you know, the one thing that's interesting is when this first broke, they announced that they had arrested a man that I actually know.
Yeah, you got to tell this story. This is crazy.
Yeah, well, so there's a guy. So I worked in Utah politics, Utah Republican politics, particularly for well over a decade, running campaigns, running for office myself. I ran for office as a Republican in 2006 and lost by 6 votes. Anyway. There's a guy named George Zinn. George has been called one of the 3 Nephites because he magically appears at every Republican event in the state, no matter what it is, no matter where it is. And when John Huntsman Jr. was installed as the new ambassador to China, George Zinn was in China.
What?
Was there. And it was just, what's George Zinn doing here? When I ran for Congress in 2017 as the first candidate for the United Utah Party and held a number of events. And the one person who was at every single one of those events, particularly if there was free food, was George Zinn. And I've had long conversations with him. He is a lonely man who is, I always thought, relatively harmless. He's gotten in trouble because he sent some kind of email to
like a threatening email or something.
Well, it was, what was it? Was it the Salt Lake City Marathon? And he sent an email saying, "Do you need me to help place bombs at the finish line?" Ha 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 ha.
Oh my gosh!
Like joking about a bomb while you're going through airport security. I mean, it's just stupid. This is not a man that has demonstrated a great deal of wisdom and a great deal of thought. And he's a man who has always been kind to me. I don't think there's anybody, from my perspective, that there's never been a sort of harmful bone in his body, just completely harmless. Just kind of and everybody knows him. I mean, it's not like I have some unique relationship with him. Everybody who's involved in Utah politics knows this guy. And
he confessed or something, didn't he?
Well, so I'm not quite sure.
Because they arrested him, right? They
arrested him on the spot. And what I think happened is that he confessed, or he said something that was interpreted as a confession. And there's video of him being dragged off the scene, and a video of him acknowledging his Miranda rights. And everybody assumed that the killer was in custody, and then they said, no, he's not. I think he's since been charged with obstruction. My guess is that he enjoyed the attention.
He's that crazy.
I'm sorry, George, but yeah, I mean, I was very relieved to learn that he was not responsible, that he was not the killer.
How long did you think he was responsible?
10 minutes, maybe. So I had seen online that they captured him and somebody mentioned his name, and I just went, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then within 10 minutes, they had announced, I heard it actually from Cardinellis.
Okay.
Because Cardinellis was live streaming this.
Yeah.
And said the guy that they've arrested is not the shooter, and they released him. And so I was just very grateful to hear that. For as odd as George Zinn is, I don't think he's capable of doing something like this.
Yeah, I hope they find whoever did this soon.
And I don't know that they will. That's the thing, is that I think George Zinn may have
don't say that.
Well, the thing is, the focus was, initially it was, okay, we've got the guy.
Yeah.
And so they weren't looking for anybody, and that gave whoever it was plenty of time to just sort of melt into the, I don't know. I hope they find him.
I hope so too. I mean, they seem to have a good idea of where the shots came from. I've heard that someone witnessed him.
Yeah, there's some video of a guy on top of the building up there.
Oh my gosh.
And so I don't know. I hope they find him too. It's really, I mean, this has the potential to bring us together or drive us apart. Because when something like this happens, you realize just how petty we can be. And hopefully, I remember after 9/11, I think you're maybe too young to remember 9/11.
No, I remember.
How old were you when 9/11 happened?
I would have been 7 or 8. I still remember though.
Well, but the amazing thing about it was it genuinely brought the nation together in a way that I don't remember happening before or since. And when something like this happens, and it's really interesting that this is sort of the catalyst, because when the Speaker of the Minnesota House was assassinated along with her husband, it didn't feel like this to me. It didn't feel like it was sparking some sort of national crisis. And, you know, Mike Lee at one point, you know, posted this thing about this is what happens when Marxists get their way. And then it turned out that it was a Trump supporter that had done it. And Mike Lee ended up looking ridiculous. But this feels different for some reason. This feels like it's not going to bring us together, that it's going to split us apart, and that people are sort of looking for revenge. And I mean, and everybody is sort of placing, in the fact that we haven't found this person means that it's an open book. And so all of the people on the left can say, this shows what happens when you don't have gun control. And all the people on the right say, this is what happens when you call Trump Hitler. You know, I mean, just everybody is sort of using this as an opportunity to press a narrative and agenda that is really, I think, kind of frightening. And if we ever needed counsel to come together and be peacemakers, we need it now. And
the media, the news is just not really helping the situation in a lot of ways. I've just seen some terrible things being said. People jumping to conclusions, people making it political already. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think there's some element to politics to this because he's a political figure and it was at a political event. But we don't know anything beyond that 'cause we don't know who the shooter was. So we're left with just this tragedy. And I don't know, it's like, man, what do we need to do? Do we need to like outlaw Twitter? No, probably a bad idea. But like,
I don't know.
It's just like Twitter is such an ugly, ugly place. A lot of times you see such ugly things on there and it seems to like promote ugliness. And every so often Twitter becomes reality in moments like this. It's just like, yeah, man, like people, like the world seemed to be, I don't know, in some sense you like look at numbers and stuff and see that like statistically, like at least in the United States, things are a lot safer than they were like a number of years ago when there wasn't as much technology. But at the same time, it like feels less safe now because we're seeing it all like up front in our face all the time. And that makes everyone feels a little more scared, you know? I hate it.
Well, the other element of it that's terrifying is that people feel free to say whatever they want as they hide behind anonymity.
Yeah.
You know, the people who are making threats are people who are using names. I mean, I have no idea who these people are. I don't know if they're going to show up on my doorstep with a whatever. I mean, I don't want to put that out there into the universe as a possibility, but it really is terrifying. People feel, I think, liberated to be the worst versions of themselves when they're hiding behind a mask, when they're hiding behind anonymity.
It creates ites.
Twitter, as what?
Ites, all manner of ites.
All manner of ites, sure.
People go on there just to hate on the group that's not their group.
It's terrifying.
And I don't want to just like throw Twitter under the bus. I'm sure like there's like other places as well. Well, I especially think Twitter's pretty bad when it comes to this type like negative rhetoric. I think Reddit's pretty bad too, depending on I guess what subreddit you're on. I don't really do Instagrams. I don't know. Facebook, I don't really do anymore either because it's a bunch of ads.
Facebook's for us old people.
Yeah. Well, even Facebook can get quite ugly as well. Even the comment section in YouTube, it's like, people, Like,
Yeah.
like let's be human beings to each other. Let's treat each other like humans instead of animals. And
Well, this is one of the things that I've discovered is that whenever you show up,
yeah,
people are much, much kinder than they don't see. I saw this in politics all the time. I saw it with my father, particularly. People just, if you're in politics, if you have any sort of public persona, people don't see you as a person. They see you as some sort of icon that they can channel whatever they're angry about. My father was really, really good at this because people would come up to him and just say the nastiest things. And it would just drive me crazy. And he says, they're looking for some place to vent. And I don't take it personally. It's not about me personally. It's just, they see me as a symbol of everything they hate in Washington or everything they hate. But that just always drove me crazy, particularly when I've run for office. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time I was running for mayor of Sandy, which I lost by 21 votes.
So we're at 27 total votes, right?
21 total votes.
Well, 21 plus the 6 you lost the other one, right? Yeah, so between two elections, you're at 27?
Yeah, I lost my race for the state senate by 6 votes.
Dang.
But I remember somebody came up to me in a parking lot and said, the mayor's race is a nonpartisan race. Mm-hmm. And by this point, I had resigned from the Republican Party, and I had formed the United Utah Party. I've never been a Democrat. That's actually not true. I was a Democrat when I was 18, so I could tick off my parents. And when they weren't mad about it, I turned into a Republican. So anyway, a whole other story. But for most of my adult life, I've been a Republican.
Yeah.
But at this point, I was a member of the United Utah Party, and this couple came up to me in the parking lot. I was in my car, and they came and they pounded on the window, and I rolled down the window, and they said, "What party are you in?" Just like that.
Yeah.
And I went, "This is a nonpartisan race. I don't care. What party are you in?" I went, "I'm in the United Utah Party." And they said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, it's a political party. I remember United. Are you a Republican or a Democrat?" Cut the BS. And they didn't say BS.
Oh.
And then I said, "Well, you're not a very good person." I said just like that to the guy. And it was just like, "What? What did you just say?" And I said, "Well, you don't even know me. And you feel like you can come and just yell in my face and demand something from me. Politics does not give you a license to be rude." And he just sat there with his eyes wide open. And it's one of those perfect moments that you imagine. It's like George Costanza in Seinfeld. "Well, I'm leaving on top." And I just drove away. I just sat there. You don't get many moments like that. That was a lot of fun. But people do feel like politics gives you a license to be rude, a license to be cruel. And it doesn't. And moments like this, I think, demonstrate that it doesn't.
Yeah, nothing does, right? Not even religion doesn't either. Some people use religion for the same reason.
That's exactly right.
And man, I really wish we could just all agree to disagree sometimes, and instead of taking things to literally shooting people. My goodness. Okay. Any last thing or thoughts or words you want to get out about the reaction to the tragedy of Charlie Kirk being murdered?
Just thoughts and prayers. I mean, that's become a cliche, but really, I don't know what else I can offer.
Yeah.
This is a family now that needs support and kindness. And I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. Compassion is nonpartisan.
Yeah.
So, two children have lost their father today, and they deserve our compassion.
And it really isn't a political thing at all, in the sense that, a human being who, like you said, who's a father, a husband, just lost his life. So that's a tragedy. So good thoughts there. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Let's try and be a little more positive. or at least get into more positive news, I think. You mentioned a little bit that you've received some threats and stuff, and I just think that's terrible. So I don't know, like if anyone's doing that, if any of my people who like listen and watch my stuff, which I hope it's nobody, is doing anything like that, then stop. My goodness, nothing bothers me more than people who make negative stereotypes true. But one thing that I was hoping would at least try to combat some of this was the LDS Compass quiz, where you and I and Stephen Pinecker got to sit down. So let's get to that segment. I'm going to play the little in-between video for this one. So this is the Through Elephant's Eyes. All right, so
I love that picture of me is me running for Congress.
Oh, yeah.
That was in 2017, right outside the steps of the Orrin Hatch Courthouse when I won a judgment that got me on the ballot. And the front page of the Salt Lake Tribune was, Jim Bennett gets on the ballot.
I think that's what I found. Yeah.
The front page headline was, Jim Bennett has no money. It was true.
So this is when you were running for state senator?
No, I ran for Congress. I ran for, in 2017, we were creating the United Utah Party, and Jason Chaffetz.
He was at the event today, by the way.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. He was on, I saw him on Fox and some other places talking about it. I think he's there with his family. Yeah. Jason
Chaffetz is an extraordinarily gifted politician. And was an extraordinarily popular congressman and got a job offer to work for Fox News. And so he resigned from Congress, which triggered a special election. And we had just begun gathering signatures to create the United Utah Party. And so we stepped it up so that we would be able to have a candidate on the ballot, and I was the candidate.
Nice.
And we turned in the signatures the day before the filing deadline, and the state sat on them for 30 days wouldn't put me on the ballot. So we had to sue to get me on the ballot. And we were successful. I got on the ballot, and I ended up getting 9.4% of the vote, which was a record for a third-party congressional candidate in Utah, but it's also just means that I lost by less than most third-party candidates lose by.
Because you are
lost rather convincingly.
Yeah. You are a traditional Republican, like a pre-Trump Republican.
This is why it cracks me up when people go in and they start talking about Jim Bennett, the progmo, Jim Bennett, the wild-eyed liberal.
Yeah, because you're not. Yeah,
I'm not. I never have been.
Can I ask, in the 2016 primaries, who were you hoping to win when Trump was?
I voted in the primary. Well, no, actually, I didn't vote because we didn't have a primary in Utah. We had a caucus. Did we have a presidential primary?
No, there was a primary. Ted Cruz.
Was there a primary?
Mopped the floor
I voted
with
for John
Trump.
Kasich.
Okay,
Kasich.
so you're Kasich. How do you say his name again? The Ohio governor.
Kasich or Kasich. I don't remember which.
Okay, and then in this last election cycle, when people weren't sure if Trump was going to win again, did you have someone you were
never sure that Trump?
Did you have someone you were supporting in that primary election?
No, I couldn't vote in that primary because I was. Utah has closed primaries.
Oh, did they close the Republican one? I thought.
They've closed the Republican
that's right. Utah's closed Republican, but Democrat is still open.
In 2016, I was working as a ghostwriter for Gary Johnson, who was the Libertarian candidate for president.
Oh, okay.
So I wrote
Gary Johnson. I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wrote op-eds that appeared in Time Magazine and the Wall Street Journal under Gary Johnson's name. And
did you?
Yeah. It was really kind of fun.
I know people who really liked him. I liked him to some extent, though. I think it's with all libertarians. You're like, yeah. And then they say like one or two things. They're like, we want all drugs to be available to everyone. Yeah, and it's like, okay.
He came and did a rally. He came and did a rally at, they've torn the school down. What was the name of the school? But it was this school that was on where the old 49th Street Galleria was. And there were dozens of people there. There was
Dozens.
dozens. You ever watch Arrested Development? There are dozens of us. Dozens.
I haven't, but I've heard a lot about it.
And so I went there, and it was the first time I met him. I'd taken the job and I'd been hired, but I had not met him. And he was giving a stump speech, and it was a good stump speech. And then he started saying, and there's no reason why you can't come home at the end of the day and light up a joint and relax. And I was like, I'm not sure if I'm all on board with this.
It's once they start freeing up everything where they want like porn to just be freely distributed and available, and same with drugs. It's a little... but let's get back to this. So, sorry. No. That's good stuff. It's interesting to talk to you about that because you are heavily involved in Utah politics and whatnot. At least you were. I don't know how much you are these days.
I'm not anymore at all. So I ran for mayor 4 years ago, and then I ran for city council 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And sort of took it for granted that I was going to win because everybody knew me for the mayor's race. And I thought, so I mean, it's not like I sat it out, but I did not work nearly as hard as I needed to. And I did not win. And I went, okay, I think the Lord is trying to tell me something. This is not
meant to be, I guess.
This is not where my life is supposed to go.
Well, I bet you could win if you ever ran again, but I mean, I don't want to.
I'm not Republican enough. I'm not Trumpy enough.
Yeah, the Republican Party is different than it used to be. But we shouldn't talk too much about politics.
No, that's fine.
Especially today.
I mean, that's the thing is that I keep waiting for the Republican Party to go back to the party that my father represented.
Yeah.
Because that's the party that I still believe in, and that's a party that doesn't exist. It's not the Democratic Party, and it's certainly not the party of Trump.
Right. Yep. It's definitely changed, and especially there's a few key areas where it's really changed. There's a few areas where it's very similar, but yeah. All right. So, well, have you ever taken the political compass quiz?
I think I did, but I can't remember where I was.
Oh, interesting. Because Luke Hansen, who's part of Word Radio, he has a channel called Doctrine and Governance. It's kind of hard to say, where he talks about kind of like the church and politics, that kind of intersection. And so he took this quiz, but we also did the political compass quiz to see if there's any type of correlation. I mean, how much correlation you can find in 2 points? Like perfect correlation, actually, because you can draw a line right between them. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I wonder how much they actually map on together since I based it off of that quiz. But one thing, if you haven't seen this video, everyone needs to go check it out because, one of the purposes of the channel is to help people understand each other. I literally use the terminology build bridges because President Nelson used that. I think back in 2020 is when I first heard him say it. I'm sure he's maybe said it before. In light of like George Floyd and all those riots, he talked about building bridges of understanding. And that's kind of just resonated with me. And it seems like that's a huge deal, especially in light of the news today. And so, Jim, what did you think of the quiz? Your experience taking the quiz? Give me your thoughts.
Well, it was certainly very thought-provoking.
Oh, good. Yeah, I hope so.
And I sat there. I mean, there were some questions that I just thought were so loaded and so difficult.
Yeah.
And that I really wanted to punt on, but I think it's helpful that I didn't punt on them and that I just sort of barreled through.
Yeah.
I mean, watching it, so I've since watched it, and I want to tell everybody out there that the version that Rylan has published is much better than the version that I think Steve Pinecker is about to publish, because Steve Pinecker is going to publish the unedited version.
I don't know if he is, actually.
He's already published it?
No, he hasn't, and I don't know if he's going to. I think he might.
Maybe he won't.
He might not, because I haven't, and I haven't given it to him yet. So.
Okay, well, I watched your edited version, and I went, oh, this is so much better, because I just ran off at the mouth an answer to so many of those questions.
Because everyone who's wondering, I didn't edit it to try and make Jim look better or worse.
No, I have nothing but praise.
Oh, good
for your editing skills.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to help people not get bored and stay on topic, so I tried to cut it down a little bit. maybe I have a short attention span, and I assume the viewers do too. So I'm like, I try and cut out a lot. And honestly, I didn't cut out as much as I was initially going to. It took me like, I had some technical difficulties that forced me to like re-edit a few times. And but I was happy with the final product and put
I
it
was as well. I'm trying to publicly praise you for your excellent job in that regard.
I was worried you're going to be like, you're making me look mean in the beginning, but I'm just, I did that to everyone. Luke Hansen, Jacob Hansen. I like take out these like clips that like you're kind of like, wait, what did he say? So you want to watch the rest of it, So you should go watch Jacob Hansen's. His little opening clip is wild. Like, what is he talking about? And Luke Hansen, who's like way more like reserved and like very even kill. His was a little bit harder to pull out fun nuggets, but and yours was kind of in between, where you had some stuff that I was like, ooh, that's going in the opener.
All right, sounds good.
So good. I'm gonna be honest. Before having all these conversations with you, I would have predicted you would have landed in the Mercy Progressive box. But then sitting down and talking, and I think a lot of people, and we'll get to comments here in a second, really started to understand Jim Bennett better. I came out with it understanding Jim Bennett much better than I did before. You landed in the Orthodox Mercy quadrant, but
just barely.
Yes.
I'm right up at the edge in the corner there of both of those. But I was kind of happy to do that because I consider myself an Orthodox Latter-day Saint. And I know other people
I think.
Jim the Progmo, it's like I don't know what it is you think is so wildly unorthodox about what I believe, but I really think I'm well within the boundaries of the mainstream of the church.
I think you are as well, even though there's some things on there that like I definitely respond differently than you, but hearing your explanations, which is great that you got to have time to give them, it's like, like I understand where you're coming from. Like I still disagree, but like I totally get and can understand how, a lot of these questions, people could strongly agree or strongly disagree and still be completely faithful members of the church. And just like, depending on how they explain or interpret what they're saying or what they think the question means or yada, yada, you can have like opposing views on something, but still be actually, really aligned with church teachings. And I find that quite interesting, Yeah. I
would agree.
Yeah. And so I appreciate you taking the time to actually take the quiz and being willing to do it, because that was like, when I think I mentioned this to you when I originally made this quiz, a small YouTube channel, and I was thinking not about just every day, like everyone taking it. I was more of wanting to have famous voices in the online Latter-day Saint space to take it so I could learn more about like where they stand on stuff. And so when I wrote it, I had Jacob Hansen in mind. I had Jim Bennett in mind. I had Dan McClellan in mind. At the time, I had Julie Hanks in mind. I had Brad Whitbeck, all the people from Ward Radio. And I just wanted to see like, okay, like we have these different archetypes, and it'd be interesting to see like where people at. And I tried to reach out to a few of those when I first wrote it. And Jacob ultimately responded, and then he took it publicly, and then that led to a bunch of his followers taking it. And then we talked about it on Word Radio, so a bunch of those people took it, and then it kind of got passed along different circles on X and different Facebook chats and groups. And so we're at, and after you took it, some people who hadn't taken it are starting to take it again, or take it for the first time. So we've had almost 8,000 people take it at this point, which is pretty cool.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, that's like what, 8,000 more than John DeLynne's survey. Oh, wait. Just kidding. No, I think he had less than 2,000.
What survey did John DeLynne do?
Oh, his survey for his dissertation and his research was a survey that he did for LGBTQ members and ex-members of the church. Based on
that's the only reference in the inconvenient.
It's his only research. So he wrote like a few papers, and then he used those papers in his dissertation, which is normal. That's kind of how I did mine. Except for I didn't do like survey stuff. But he
You've written a dissertation?
Yeah, I have a PhD in biomedical informatics. I do.
Why didn't I know that? I should know that.
No, you shouldn't know it. It doesn't.
You have a PhD in what again?
Biomedical informatics.
What the heck is that?
Yeah, it's like the intersection of biomedicine and technology. And so there's kind of like different places you can go with it, like bioinformatics, health informatics, clinical informatics, population informatics. It's all informatics is basically information technology, essentially. It's like, in fact, the word for computer science in Spanish is informatics. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm saying
I need to introduce you to my twin boys. I have one that is getting his master's in applied mathematics.
Hey, I did applied mathematics at BYU.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Did you do why?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, he's finished his undergrad, but he's finishing his last year this year.
So he did applied and computational mathematics undergrad, and now he's doing the master's.
He's doing the master's. Yeah.
Awesome.
And my other son,
Great
both
program.
of them got scholarships for being a math major, but they're identical twins, and you would think that they would be exactly aligned on this. But one of them decided he didn't like math. He wants to go to medical school.
Okay.
But his major is dang it. Bio is in the name.
Biostats.
I want to say PD Bio. Is that a thing?
Oh, PD Bio. Yeah. That's a lot of like pre-med students would take like PD Bio. Yeah, see, I always kind of like
a combination of both of my sons.
Yeah, I always liked medicine, but never really wanted to be like a doctor, except for maybe when I was like really little. And I've always been a math and like technology nerd. And so when I found out that this was an option, I was like, it's what I want to do, and it's great. Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, cool stuff. I was just, being mean to John. That's what I was doing. I was saying John DeLynne's research is not very good. Yeah. And it's not. And I don't mean that to be like offensive, but it's just, from a fellow researcher perspective, it's like,
well, I'll take your word for it. You have more doctors than I do.
At some point, I've kind of teased this with someone. I'm just throwing this out there. There's like not very good research when it comes to the church, especially LGBTQ stuff. I think it would be a wonderful, speaking of like Peacemaker stuff, unifying project to partner with someone like John DeLynne and do some really good research. But we'll see if that ever happens. I doubt it, but that's a daydream of mine.
So all I know about John DeLynne's research is, in an inconvenient faith.
Yeah.
Which I guess I'm jumping ahead because we're going to talk about this documentary.
Yeah.
But he reports the findings of his research.
Yeah.
And the research was conducted along with a professor at BYU.
Yes.
And what they found were 4 different they were analyzing the outcomes of LGBT people in the church.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they found the people who had the worst outcomes were people who denied their sexuality or entered into sort of mixed orientation marriages and just tried to sort of power through. And he said in terms of depression, suicidality, all of these negative outcomes, they fared the worst. Then he says, so then you have another group of people who leave the church, and he said they fare better than those other 2 groups. But he goes on to say what really surprised him was this 4th group.
Mm-hmm.
And the 4th group were people who were somehow able to fully integrate their sexuality with their observance with the faith. I mean,
yep.
we put that in, and a lot of ex-post Mormons have complained that we're making John DeLynne look like an apologist.
Yeah,
because he has the most praise for people, not for the people who leave, but the people who somehow are able to fully accept who they are and also fully stay committed to the church in the process. I find people like this, incidentally, in the Tabernacle Choir. There are an awful lot of gay men in the Tabernacle Choir.
In a choir? Really? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, isn't that right?
Yeah.
they have found ways that they're able to fully embrace who they are and also embrace their covenants and embrace the restored gospel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
gives me hope.
Yeah, and for anyone wondering, I have a video where I talk about John DeLyn's, one of his papers in particular, where he talks about this survey, or that was based in his, it's included in his dissertation. So if anyone want to check that out, it's a very academic critique of his paper. Please check it out. It's on my channel. Also, Jacob Hansen got wind of it and liked it and reposted it on his channel too. So I guess you can find it there. But yeah. And the last thing I'll say about it is, I don't know what the last thing I was going to say about it, but it'd be nice if there was some better research to be done. So the actual paper itself, the one particular that I went through, it's way better than the way he talks about his research. It's still not like a great paper. It's not profound in any sense of the imagination. The most egregious thing is the way he talks about his research, because he goes way beyond the scope of his paper, like way beyond the scope of his paper in a way that's like is frankly bad science. But he's a psychologist. That's what they do. Bad science. I'm just kidding. All right. Let's get into some of the reaction to this and continue to stick with our theme of peacemaking and building bridges. So let's get to the hidden gems. We'll look at some of the responses to what people were saying about your experience with the LDS Compass Quiz. So real quick, I have to shout out the members of the channel who help make this possible, and the purpose of the channel, which is to elevate members of the church by building bridges of understanding through fun and informative content, and to help honest actors to take the church seriously by exposing limitations of critics and correcting misconceptions. With that, let us thank the Pachyderm member, Jacob Wardle. Jacob Wardle, thank you. I think you were the longest tenured member. So that's great. Thank you so much for the support. And last, we have Mammoth members, Jared, Jensen, Kiori. I saw you in the chat, Kiori. I am still reading your book. I told you I moved, and that set me back because I finished like half of it in one day, and then I haven't really returned much to it. But I will get to it. And then Jane Heikila. I don't know how to say that, but really cool name, Jane. How about that? And then Thorgus951. Thank you for being Mammoth members. But I want to turn your attention to some of the comments, because I saw a theme. You actually sent me something privately that also aligned with what I was seeing in the comments. So, for example, first one, I got to say this one because this one made me laugh. Zion will be established when Jim and Jacob can hug it out. Come on, brothers, take one for the team. So, Jim, would you be willing to hug Jacob Hansen? Some people were saying you were talking so much about Jacob, like, oh, he's in your head. Well, people, first off, we filmed this pretty close to, this is still pretty close to all of the back and forth that you and Jacob have had recently. So give Jim some grace. He doesn't have Jacob living in his head rent free. First off, I
would think Jacob would want a much nicer place to live
than your head. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to live here. And I wouldn't inflict this on anybody.
And it made sense that we were talking a little bit about Jacob, because Jacob has taken the quiz, and so there's kind of a fun contrast there. So
I posted not too long ago, and I genuinely mean this. I don't see Jacob as my enemy, and really today particularly,
yeah.
With all of this, it's like I don't have any doubt that Jacob Hansen would never ever. Of course, he would never ever shoot anyone, but it goes beyond that. I think Jacob Hansen recognizes the boundaries of civility in a way that I want to give him credit for. The kinds of threats and the kinds of nastiness that I'm getting now are from people that are behaving in ways that I don't think Jacob ever would.
Yeah. Good. That's pleasing to hear. I like you. I like Jacob, and it's great to hear you say something like that. And I think yeah, like if Jacob hasn't, you've said that's not the only time you said something really nice about Jacob. Like you've said many really nice things about him. Like obviously you guys have some disagreements and disalignments in some stuff.
Jacob is, he's clearly very intelligent, very articulate, very gifted, very talented, and really. I remember watching with Alex O'Connor, and I said this, I'm not sure if it was on your place.
You did? Yeah.
Because one of the comments was, he's so petty, because what I said was, I was waiting for him to fall on his face. And that's so petty. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it is. I apologize. It was petty. But I was just so tremendously impressed with how he handled Alex O'Connor. And I think Alex O'Connor was tremendously impressed, clearly, because he called Jacob back up for a second go-round.
Yeah.
But when Jacob is representing the church to people beyond the boundaries of the church, I think there are very few, if any, people who are better at that than Jacob is. It's when he sort of goes after the friendly fire that I get into trouble with him. But no, I mean, he very clearly has a really good grasp and understanding of the restored gospel and is very effective at communicating that.
Yeah.
Beyond the boundaries of the church.
Yeah. And, like someone's saying in the comments, sometimes brothers fight. And the thing that we have the same, I think everyone has like the same goal in mind. And I think it's okay for people to have different strengths, different things they bring to the table. And in fact, we'll talk about this when we get into the inconvenient faith, about why I think it is a positive thing, even though I think some people might watch it and not like it. But we'll get into that in just a second. Let's look at some other positive ones. Thank you for having this conversation. My concerns about Jim Bennett have significantly diminished.
Okay, it's so funny to me that anybody would have concerns about me.
Well, they're concerned. I don't know. I can't speak for his concern.
Why are they? This is the thing. Why are they bothering to think about me at all?
Well, I think I don't know. Let me try and articulate something that I think you have I've said this many times. You have an important voice in the online conversation of the church. I think you have a lot of weight to the things you say. I think you have a lot of people who follow and care about what you're saying. And I think at the same time that there's someone like you, there's someone like Jacob, and you kind of butt heads with Jacob. And if people don't see everything that you say, they start to paint you into a box. And I think the box that you got painted into was akin to Julie Hanks, who Julie Hanks had a big voice in the church as well, and a lot of people have family members. I know people who have family members who are kind of brought out of the church because of Julie Hanks. And so I think because people didn't watch everything you were saying, were starting to be painted into he's like a Julie Hanks, like this person that's this progmo that's just going to pull my relatives out of the church. Even he's like this wolf in sheep's clothing because he's in the church, but he's just going to pull people out. So I think that's what, I don't know. I'm trying to get inside the shoes of someone that I have no idea what their background is, but I think that's what it is. Does that make any sense at all, or am I just? I
suppose. I mean, the whole Julie Hanks thing. I don't know Julie well. I don't know that I've ever met her in person. I did have one phone conversation with her after the podcast, and discovered that she's my neighbor. She doesn't live very far away from me.
Oh, really?
But my whole problem with the Julie Hanks thing, or with anything, is I really, really have a hard time with gatekeeping, with saying this person is a good Latter-day Saint, but this person isn't. I mean, nobody is accountable to me online. Whether if I don't like Jacob Hansen, or I think Jacob Hansen's out of line, and I do think Jacob Hansen is out of line on several occasions, doesn't matter. Jacob's not accountable to me. Jacob is accountable to his priesthood leaders, and he's accountable to the Lord. And the same is true with Julie Hanks. The same is true with anybody else. And to blame Julie Hanks or anybody else for pulling somebody out of the church is to deny the power and responsibility that comes with agency.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody, I mean,
I get that.
could, if I wanted to, use Jacob Hansen or take something Jacob Hansen has said and use that as an excuse to leave the church. But ultimately, it's not Jacob Hansen that's making me leave the church. It's me.
Yeah,
you know, I make those decisions, and people seek out voices or seek out opinions that are helpful to them in whatever it is that they want to do. So I just get very frustrated with any kind of online gatekeeping and the idea that anybody is accountable to me or that it matters what I say. I mean, I'm flattered if people take me seriously, and I am repeatedly told there's this one guy who every time I post anything, he just likes to say, "It's a good thing nobody takes you seriously." I'm like, well,
I think people take you very
seriously enough to post on everything I post. But whatever.
Well, I get what you're saying, and I really agree with that sentiment that like at the end of the day, where we punish for our own sins, we have agency, we get to choose, we can't really gatekeep. But I mean, at the same time, like imagine you have like a kid who says, "Hey, this person's a member of the church, and they say that this and this is okay, and that this and this," and then like, okay, and then they say this and this, and I really like them, and they're leaving the church, so I'm going to leave the church too. Like, you know, there's a reason they're called influencers, right?
Well, okay.
So like you can see, like if you had like a parent-child relationship, and you were worried that these influencers were starting to like, you know, influence your child in a way that like seemed like it was, oh, they're in the church, so it's okay. But then they started introducing ideas that were contrary to what you tried to teach your kid growing up. You know, you'd kind of be like a little weary of more people like that. And again, I don't think you're like that at all and I think hopefully like Aristotle says here that you're not like that. I don't like at all. Like, I don't even think it's a good comparison, honestly.
Well, I think one of the important things, though, in terms of the online discussion, I mean, one of the reasons why Stephen Peinecker thinks that my first conversation with Jacob is so important.
Oh, I'm right there with him. Super important.
I don't know that it's important, but he says you guys represent two different factions in the church. And I don't like to think of things in terms of factions.
Yeah.
I like to think of things in terms of boundaries. I think
is there a difference? Isn't that the same thing? Faction just has a little more harsh connotation, I think.
Well, no, faction, I think, faction adds a boundary, right? You have the church as a boundary, and then you have factions within the church that each have their own boundaries that are within the church.
So it's a within boundary is what a faction is.
It's a within boundary that I think is unnecessary. I think I would like us to consider the reality that people within the broader boundary of the church are living their faith and living their ideas in ways that are in many ways unique to them, but are acceptable not because they're not within Jacob's boundary or my boundary, but they're within the broader boundary of the church. And one of the messages that I try to get out there is that the boundaries of what you are allowed to believe in the church are far broader than people realize. I really, really genuinely believe that. Yeah. That when we sort of try to draw boundaries for ourselves and say, you can't be a good Mormon if you're a Democrat. You can't be a good Mormon if you believe in evolution. You can't be a good, I mean, there are all these people that draw these no true Scotsman's boundaries. And I think that's just not non-productive and unhelpful. And so I that's where I start to push back pretty hard. Mm-hmm. I actually, Jacob and I have been in an online sort of spat, and somebody's kind of mad at us for the last couple of days because I've been pushing back. He posted a picture of the
gerrymandering,
of Salt Lake City, and said, "Where do you think Julie Hanks and he used Julie Hanks, John Dehlin, and then Richard Osler it drives me crazy when he picks on Richard Ostler, because Richard Ostler, you're not going to find a more faithful, believing Latter-day Saint, but he doesn't fit Jacob's boundaries, but he absolutely fits within the boundaries of the church. And if
he wrote that book that's in Deseret
Live,
Book.
Love, Learn, yeah. And Jacob hates it. And fine, the Deseret Book doesn't hate it, and the church doesn't hate it, and he's not in danger of losing his membership. So Jacob has to accept that here's a man that is living within the boundaries of a church that isn't within the boundaries of what Jacob thinks is acceptable, but it's absolutely within the boundaries of what the church thinks is acceptable.
You think what's published at Deseret Book means it's within the bounds of what the church? I guess since it's owned by the church. Well, you tell me. Do you have much insight? Like, how much do they vet and read, and how high up does it go? Obviously,
I do have a little bit of insight because I had a botched attempt to get a book published at Deseret Book.
Okay.
So
wait, your fallibility book?
No.
Okay.
No.
You should try and get that one published soon. I want to read it.
I'm still working on that. I'm still working. This is the difficulty. I don't have any idea how to sell what I write.
You get someone to sell it for you.
Well, great. You want to sell my books?
Sure. I don't know. I better read it before I say.
Well, I'm in this writers group. I've written a book that has nothing to do with the church. It's a historical thriller. It's called Much Ado About Murders.
Ooh.
And it's kind of a Da Vinci Code for the Shakespeare authorship question.
Oh yeah, I remember you're really into that Shakespeare authorship.
Really into the Shakespeare authorship question.
So that sounds cool.
And but I can't figure out how to sell that.
Yeah, I know. There's a few people who have reached out to me, Kiori, in the chats, who wrote a book. But by the way, I have it right here. Nephi's Tabernacle. He kind of had a hard time finding people to publish. Ultimately went with Amazon, which is always an option.
Well, yeah, you can self-publish. I mean, I self-publish my CES letter reply, and it's essentially a bestseller. I can document that it's been downloaded 200,000 times or more. I've lost count now. We hit the 200,000 number a few years ago, so it's
I heard the 200,000. I said that in the video, but I put the little asterisk that said I've heard this, but I haven't verified it.
Yeah, I don't know if I could. Because it's been downloaded from Scripture Central. I don't know how many it's downloaded there. It's downloaded primarily from my own website.
Where's your royalties, man?
So
get it like a penny a download. There you go.
Penny a download, and I'd be doing well. But
yeah, you'd be a penny richer. I'm just kidding. No.
So where was I going with this? I was making some kind of point other than.
Oh, sorry. I distracted you. Let's see. We were talking about.
Oh no, Deseret Book.
Deseret Book. That's right. Your insight to it.
You want my insights? So I wrote a book. This is probably now 15 years ago, which makes me feel really old.
It's not that long ago, though. But
at the time, there's a series of books published by Deseret Book under a different imprint. Deseret Book has an imprint called Shadow Mountain that publishes. They publish business books. They publish other things that just aren't LDS specific.
Are they sold in Deseret Book, or are they just sold?
They are sold in Deseret Book, but they try to sell them. I don't know if it still exists. Actually, it existed 15 years ago, but under the Shadow Mountain imprint, they published a series of fantasy novels called Fablehaven.
Oh, I've read those.
You read Fablehaven?
Yeah. I read it, at least the first one. I'm trying to remember if I read the second. It's a good book.
Brandon Mole wrote Fablehaven, and it was published by Deseret Book under the Shadow Mountain.
Oh, okay.
Imprint. And I wrote a book. The title was Gods, Monsters, and Jeff Downey. It's kind of Greek. It's kind of a Richard Riordan sort of mythology thing. Somebody, one of the agents said it was like Percy Jackson meets Beverly Hills 90210 because it's set in my hometown of Calabasas.
Oh, cool.
I wrote this, and one of my really good friends at the time was the head of Deseret Book Music. And I said, how do I get this to Shadow Mountain? And he read it and said, I'll give it to him. And they came back to me and said, we love this. We're going to publish this. And I went, yay. Part of the problem, though, was that the head editor of Deseret Book is my first cousin, or was my first cousin. She's since retired and is now serving a service mission. But she was the head editor, and I was doing this kind of behind her back because I had actually shown this to her at one point, and she didn't really like it. And so I was trying to go through this other channel.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in a meeting with the head of, wasn't with the head of Deseret Book, but with the head of Shadow Mountain. I remember what his name is. And then my cousin walked in the door and saw me there. I'm like, Jim, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh crap, the jig is up.
Uh-oh.
And then later they came back to me and they said, you know what? This is something that Shadow Mountain is probably not the right place to publish it because it needs a broader audience. So here's an agent, a literary agent that I think could probably help you and bring this to a broader audience. And the agent read it and said, I don't like this. And just said, forget it. No, I don't want this. And so I went back to Deseret Book and they went, yeah.
Oh, man.
So that book is still sitting on my hard drive, and it's way out of date probably. I haven't done much with it since. I've tried to get other agents.
You should keep it up. I bet you'd find someone who could publish it.
The process of getting anybody to pay attention to something you write is really, really difficult. At least it is for me. It's really difficult.
Oh, I don't think you're alone. Yeah, it is difficult. It's an uphill battle. So anyone who's writing out there, Kiori, Jim, I had someone else who sent me a book that I'm going to start reading here. Just keep going. Keep going. Don't give up. Because you just got to break through.
You just got to break through. So Deseret. So the bottom line is that. So my cousin has talked to me about her experience. She's very good friends with Sherry Dew, who is the president of Deseret Book.
Yeah.
And I remember when Sherry Dew was first called into the Relief Society presidency, and my cousin just said this is amazing because she's a single woman. They've never called a single woman. Yeah. It's always a married woman, and she was single when she was called in. My cousin has edited all of Thomas S. Monson's books for Deseret Book. She tells this story of meeting with him while she was editing his book with another friend of hers, and they were both pregnant. And President Monson, who was in the Quorum of the 12, he wasn't the president of the church at the point in time, but he says, "This isn't a prophecy, but I think you'll both have girls."
Did they?
They did.
Oh,
and
sounds like it was a prophecy.
And she saw him years later and said, "Elder Monson, I don't know if you remember me." And he says, "Oh, I do. Did you both have girls?"
No way.
Yeah, and
that's cool.
So, the stuff at Deseret Book does not. It's not reviewed by the Quorum of the 12.
Yeah, I don't think the Quorum of the 12 are like, we got to read every submission that comes this way. No, they delegate. Yeah,
but Sherry Dew and other people at Deseret Book know where the boundaries are, and if something is outside of the boundaries. I experienced this personally, actually, when I was a writer for the Deseret News. I was a columnist for the Deseret News for about 6 years. So you wrote for Gary Johnson and the Deseret News? I actually lost my job at the Deseret News when I took the job with Gary Johnson.
Oh, okay.
They said you can't do both.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So you were his ghostwriter? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, and I think I went back to Deseret News and they let me write for him again after that campaign, but then they dropped me completely when I ran for Congress. They said, you can't run for Congress. And,
that makes sense.
Because I wasn't just writing a column, I was writing House editorials.
Oh, yeah. So
when newspapers were a thing, you would open up the newspaper opinion page, and at the top left corner, there was a box that said, "In our opinion."
Yeah.
And it was the opinion of the entire paper. It was unsigned. and we were very cognizant of boundaries there.
Yeah, because that's owned by the church. Yeah.
Yeah, it's owned by the church, and we knew that whatever we wrote would be interpreted as the position of the church. And so since then, I have said many times that the goal of a Deseret News editorial is to offend the least amount of people possible. You write very inoffensive, except on places where the church has already stuck its neck out.
Okay.
And one of the places where the church has stuck its neck out, which makes right-wingers pretty angry,
I'm guessing what you're going to say. Oh, immigration. Okay, I thought you were going to say abortion.
Yeah. Abortion. I can't remember writing anything on abortion.
Okay, but immigration.
I think they were very nervous about abortion because the church's position on abortion is far more nuanced than people realize.
You can read exactly what it is in the.
Yeah, you can read exactly what it is, but so many members of the church assume that the church is so rigidly anti-abortion that they don't realize that when you go to General Conference and you see all those protesters outside the conference center, 90% of them are anti-abortion protesters.
Hey, I don't know about 90%. I actually have a video about this in my experience with the protesters.
But a lot of them are. I mean, I don't know.
I'm sure there's some that are, but
that's the main item of
well, I think the main thing is that they don't want us to go to hell. And
but we're going to hell because we're so pro-abortion, because we allow for
maybe that's the motivation. Sure.
We allow for exceptions in cases of rape and incest, and in cases where not just the life, but the health of the mother is threatened. And they consider that to be just too huge a loophole.
I mean, that's how the church basically says health of the mother, including mental health for that's how
which they interpret, and I think to some degree rightly so, as a pro-choice position. A lot of the laws that have been passed, the state laws that have been passed since Roe versus Wade was overturned, do not allow for those exceptions. The majority of them do not allow for those exceptions. And the big challenge you have is that I think all of them have a life of the mother exception. But the difficulty with that is then you have to wait until the health condition becomes near fatal. You have to allow the woman's health to deteriorate to the point where her life genuinely is in danger. And that's a really, I think, dangerous thing to do. Anyway, the point is with the Deseret News, we were very cognizant of the boundaries, and there were things that we were not allowed to write about, not allowed to talk about. And I can remember once writing an editorial. I was assigned to write an editorial about how human trafficking is bad. And I was is there a pro-human trafficking?
Exactly. Who are you writing to? The people who
we're worried about offending here? And the difficulty was just, I mean, these are about 450 words long. And it was how do I get to 450 words here talking about nothing? And it ended up being something like, if you see something, say something kind of thing. But it was just, so many of these editorials just had no teeth to them because we didn't want to ruffle feathers. And so I remember, I had left the Deseret News when they wrote that editorial that called for Donald Trump to drop out of the race. Do you remember that?
I think so. Was that around the same time that Romney talked at the University of Utah? Or was this later? Was this 2016?
When the Access Hollywood tape came out.
Oh, okay, so this was a little bit after that then, when he already won the primary.
He'd already won. He was the nominee. He had already begun his debates with Hillary Clinton.
Okay, yeah, because it came out
Access Hollywood, that you grab women by the you-know-what.
Yeah, don't say it.
No, yeah. You bleeped out the word peanut.
Yes, I did.
And you probably bleep it out here now.
I can't now. This is live, but...
this is live! Yeah. Aha!
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I thought that would be funny and protect my YouTube from putting me on some list.
But the Access Hollywood tape came out, and And the Deseret News wrote an editorial calling it evil, calling Donald Trump evil, and calling him on him to drop out of the race. And then they kept saying, and we did this. Nobody at the church told us to do this. And I just sat there going, oh, come on. Come on. It's not that there's no way you did not run that up the flagpole. There's no way you would put the Deseret News's reputation on the line to say something like that if you didn't get approval at the highest levels. But I don't know that for certain, but I kind of do. I mean, when I was there, if I had said, hey, I want to write an editorial for the Deseret News that says Donald Trump is evil, they would have been like, we'll never do that unless somebody higher up is willing to endorse something like that.
So it's interesting, and now I have to plug another video on my channel. You're just talking about a bunch of stuff. I have a video talking about, it's called How Trump Won Over the Latter-day Saints. And I kind of go through the history of how the Latter-day Saints in Utah did not like Trump at all. In fact, they voted against him very heavily, more than like any other state. They voted for Ted Cruz. And obviously, Utah is a very Republican state. So much so, do you remember, like, CNN was saying Utah might go third party. And they even had it on their map that, like, Utah might even go for Hillary, which was never going to happen. But, like, third party was on the table. And,
but Evan McMullen did better.
He did great. Yeah, McMullen.
He didn't do better than Hillary, but he did better than anyone else.
He did very competitive with Hillary.
He was very competitive with Hillary.
Yeah.
I remember in 92, when Clinton ran and Ross Perot ran, that Clinton came in third behind Bush and
oh, really? He came in third?
Yeah.
So
Clinton came in third. When that was the year my father was first elected to the Senate, and he met Bill Clinton for the first time.
Was that his second
impressed.
round or his first round?
That was his first round. He was first elected in 92, same year Clinton was first elected.
Okay.
And they went to the White House and had hamburgers with the entire Republican caucus. And Dad got a chance to meet Clinton and was very impressed with how charismatic he was, and went up to him and said, boy, I'm sure glad I didn't have to run against you. And Bill Clinton said to him, you'd have beaten me in Utah. He was well aware of how unpopular he was.
Yeah. Man, different times. Politics were so much more professional back then.
Yeah.
And anyway, okay, let me come back to this. So that's interesting. Thanks for your thoughts there.
I'm going to keep talking, but I have grapes that are being turned into grape juice and that are going to boil over if I don't go do that. So can I walk and talk to you?
Sure,
Is that
you can
legal?
walk and talk. I'm going to bring up...
Has anybody ever done that before?
No one's ever done that? This is a first.
I'm walking up from my basement and see here, this is my big steamer. I'm making grape juice from my grapes.
That's really cool. So you grow grapes then?
Yeah, we have all these grapevines in our backyard. So...
All right. Well, while you're doing that,
keep talking. I'm still here and I'm still listening. And I'm being rude, but this is live. I don't know what else I'm going to do. And my
no
wife
problem.
I'm in trouble if I don't do this.
So Wojo375 says, I can't believe I agree with Jim Bennett on the temple recommend question. He actually made sense on his answer. So to recap, for those who haven't seen it, which everyone go see it. And I see some people in the comments kind of saying some stuff, and like I think the moral of the story is that it's okay, we can agree to disagree on some stuff. We can agree to disagree on everything.
Because I thought my temple recommend question answer was a little too radical.
Too radical? Well, I think you explained yourself pretty well, where you still think it's important, but like the spirit of it is more about self-reflection and whatnot.
Yeah.
I thought that was a positive comment to see. I'm trying to grab all these nice positive ones. Someone said, Bold Menace 708 said, man, I'm shocked how much I actually agree with Jim, LOL. It's like, yes, people. Like, I think people who are your biggest critics probably agree with you way more than they think they do. And I definitely saw that.
I think they attribute to me positions that I don't really have.
I think so too.
And I think a lot of that is political, because I think a lot of them see me as this wild-eyed Democrat leftist, and again, it just makes me laugh because
You're not. Yeah, you're a Republican.
you know, back in the day,
You're a rhino. If you ask the MAGA.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a hardcore rhino. And my father was considered a hardcore rhino, and that's why he lost. But he said near the end of his life, he's like, I've been in the Republican trenches for 60 years, and I'm the rhino. So
yeah,
it's the party that's changed. It's not me that's changed.
It has. Yeah, it's changed. And there's I remember on some video, someone said they unsubscribed from me because they think that, I don't know, something about it, like you have to support Trump or else you're evil. I'm like, I don't know where you're getting that from, but I don't think that's the case at all. So whoever that was, please resubscribe. Because I don't think that's the case. Okay, and then, so that's all the comments, and now it's time to talk about a little bit more into an inconvenient faith. So while you're still setting up right there, I'll just say, I talked a little bit about it on my last live stream with Jacob's Jams, Kyle Jacobs. He's a musician guy that we did a live stream with, and he hadn't seen it, so he didn't say much about it. But I had watched all episodes quickly, and you can see here the proof that all of those have the big red bar at the bottom. Oh, and I just ended the slideshow. Big red bar at the bottom. Because there's 9 episodes, and as soon as I heard about it, I watched all 9 of them while I was working, just back to back to back, just listening in. And yeah, so before I watched it, I saw some comments from some of the workers at what are they called? You know, like Saints Unscripted or Keystone. They get some funding. They're like a 501c3, I think. They get some funding that I think that comes from the church. I think that the More Good Foundation.
More Good Foundation, yeah.
Right. So some of those people said they had watched it, and I read what they said, and they said, I actually thought it was pretty good. Like, I thought it was going to be like negative, but I came away with like really positive feelings and thought that, and their main takeaway was, I'm not giving the person's name because they said this in a private chat. They said that they thought that faithful members will watch it and feel their faith being increased, and ex-Mormons will watch it and also like it, but for kind of like they'll like it for their own justification or whatever. And I kind of thought, oh, that's silly. Let me go watch it. And I kind of came away with the same response. It's like, yeah, you know, it wasn't anti. Okay, I know. Okay, some people are gonna hear that and be like, how dare you say it wasn't anti? Some episodes had elements that were not fair to the church, but some elements were very fair and some were even like very positive. So it kind of balanced itself out a little bit. I will say this, there are some people that were included in the show. I won't say names, but that just made me roll my eyes. I was like, why is this person, like, what credibility? Like, what does this person, why are they there? And the funny thing is it wasn't John DeLynn or Bill Rill. They actually played that had some good things to say. There's maybe one thing that I was kind of like, okay, like roll my eyes a little bit, but like besides that, they were like pretty good. But there's a few other people. There's one person in particular, I'm not going to say, that I was just like, oh my gosh, why? But overall, I think.
Tell me afterwards.
Okay.
I want to know who it is.
Overall, I think this is what I think. This is one of my main takeaways is like people who listen to someone like maybe even my channel or like Jacob Hansen, you know, probably aren't going to like benefit a ton from watching Inconvenient Faith because different voices speak to different people. You know, I'll use myself. How about this? I'm going to use myself as an example because I'm a human being. You know, I have thoughts and feelings. You know, there's a reason I like watching Jacob Hansen stuff because I think the way he the way he does stuff and like kind of like the logic and philosophy that he brings to the table really resonates with me, and I really like it. And so for me, a lot of his stuff, you know, builds up my testimony, strengthens me. I get uplifted from engaging with Jacob Hansen. But not everyone is like me. some people, watch Jacob and they get really turned off because they think he's too arrogant or whatever. They don't like the philosophical kind of argumentative stuff, which I really like. So other people aren't like that. And other people might watch An Inconvenient Faith and really like it. And it doesn't, like, it's not the type that, like, I watch and I feel like, oh yeah, I feel like super enlightened. I didn't really feel positive or negative from it. But I know there's people who are going to watch this, who are, especially people who might be kind of on the boundaries of the church, whether inside or out, who watch it and just come away very uplifted and encouraged by it in a very positive way. And so I kind of gained an appreciation watching it, thinking, this doesn't speak to everyone, but there's a big group of members of the church who probably watch this and just really, really benefit from it. And I think that's a great crowd that, like, someone like you, Jim, I think are more equipped to talk to people in that camp than someone like myself, for example. Like, I think you speak to those people better. And I think this spoke to a certain group that, like, it really, I'm thinking it had a very good positive thing. So anyway, let me just summarize real quick, and then I'll let you kind of give some of your thoughts. But so people in the chat who comment and say, oh, this is a very anti thing. I can kind of see where you're coming from if you're like me, where you kind of resonate more with like a Jacob Hansen type, but it's really not that. It's not meant to be that. And it's actually a very positive thing, I think, for a lot of people. And so I think it's unfair to call this an anti thing. In fact, I think more ex-Mormons are upset with it than members within the church, because from what I've heard. So anyway, I'll stop there. Jim, your thoughts on anything I said, or just on Inconvenient Faith in general? What's the feedback been like?
The feedback has been primarily positive. Most of the Jacob Hansen style members have pretty much ignored it. And this really isn't aimed in that direction. I don't blame them for ignoring it. This is aimed. So I showed it to a friend of mine who has made it very clear to me that he's leaving the church. Okay. I think he may by now have resigned his membership. He said, I'm going to leave at the end of the month, and that was last month. And I said to him, I would really be interested in what you think of this. And he came back to me and he said, well, Jim, it's very well done, but it's not for me.
Interesting.
And I said, well, what do you mean? And he says, well, you do show critics of the church, and you show, John DeLynn and Bill Reel and those kinds of guys. But it seems very geared to persuade people to stay in the church. And I don't want to stay in the church. I think the church is irretrievably broken, and I'm going to leave. So this doesn't do anything for me, because I don't want to hear people tell me reasons to stay. And he said it with exactly that kind of he wasn't angry with me. He just was like, no, this isn't for me. And I thought that was really helpful feedback. And it's really interesting to see the feedback coming from, I am sort of patrolling. So the guy who did this, who funded it, he directed it, is a guy named Robert Reynolds.
The brother
of Dan Reynolds.
Reynolds, yeah.
Dan Reynolds, who I have not met, but he is also the manager of the Killers, and I did get an opportunity to meet Brandon Flowers.
Cool. Yeah, because he's in it.
He's in it. Yeah, I was there when they filmed Brandon.
Poor Brandon. I wonder how many times he's like asked to be like, hey, like, you're a member of the church and you're famous, so why don't you come talk about but he volunteers, so I guess I just wonder if he's like, I don't represent the church, stop talking to me.
I hesitate to tell this story, but I haven't told this yet, but it's kind of a fun story.
Ooh, breaking news. So Jim Bennett has a fun story.
So when Robert first approached me, it was after I had done 14 hours with Bill Reel.
Oh, yeah.
And that's sort of what launched me into this weird progmo space. Because prior to that, I had published my CES letter reply, and I got inundated with emails from people saying, oh, thank you. You helped me stay in the church. And my CES letter reply was not designed to own the Exmos or even persuade anybody to come back to church. It was designed for people like me when I went through my own personal faith crisis. And my first reaction was, how do I stay? Because I think that's the reaction of most people who encounter difficult things about the church. They go, oh, geez, how can I stay knowing that Joseph Smith was a polygamist who married young girls? How can I stay knowing about the priesthood ban? Or how can I stay knowing? One of the things that really freaked me out was the Kinderhook plates, which don't freak me out at all anymore.
Right.
But initially it was like, it wasn't, oh gosh, now I can leave because I really want to sin, which is the cliche.
Right.
It's all these terrible things. How can I stay knowing all these things? And my CES letter reply was designed to say, here's how I do it. Here's how I stay. Your mileage may vary. Your mileage will vary. But this is how I deal with all of these challenges. And after I went on Bill Reel, the feedback I started getting came from people who left the church. And I still get feedback from people who say, thank you for your CES letter reply. But I also now get feedback from people who've left, who say things like, you didn't persuade me to come back to church, but you certainly helped me understand my family and friends who are still in. And they start sort of pouring out their hearts. You know, I'm married to a woman who's still a believer, and I've lost my faith. How do I navigate that? How do I, I've left the church and my parents have disowned me, and I started to sort of discover this whole world of pain, of people that are on the borders of the church that don't have anybody talking to them. They certainly don't have Jacob Hansen talking to them, because most of the people in that camp treat all of these people as if they're Korihor. It's the Korihor template. If anybody leaves, they secretly still know the church is true. There's no possible way they could leave for any legitimate reason. And they've sacrificed or given up every good thing about themselves that was part of them when they were in the church. They've become this totally new agent of Satan. I mean, nobody explicitly says that, but that's how people feel. I mean, that they feel like they're being treated that way. And whether that's a fair assumption or not, I just discovered this whole world of people on the borders of the church, whether they're hanging on from the inside of the edge or whether they're looking out from the outside of the edge, because so many of their family and friends are still in, that I just discovered, okay, this is not a group of people that anybody is talking to. We don't have any bridges built with any of these people. And these are people that are desperate to figure out how to navigate the connection with the church. And a lot of them want to stay. A lot of them are on the inside of the edge and they don't really know how to stay. So that came through, I think, in my conversations with Bill. And that's what I got a phone call from Robert Reynolds. And he said, I've watched all 14 hours, which just drives me crazy. But people tell me that. It's like, why?
Yeah. I haven't watched all 14 hours.
Good for you.
I think I watched
I haven't either.
Most of your John DeLynn, which you were at least like 5 hours.
That was about 14 hours, yeah.
Was it 14 hours? Maybe I haven't watched it all then. Wait.
14 or 15, yeah.
Where did John DeLynn fit into this? Was this before or after Bill Reel?
Oh, it was after Bill Reel.
Okay.
I had a problem. Bill Reel, it made me really angry. Bill and I have since sort of made peace over this.
Yeah, he debated you. He led you in.
That's the thing that drove me crazy is that I went into it not explicitly saying this is not a debate. Let's just talk.
And give John DeLynn credit, because that was much more of a conversation.
John DeLynn, I have no complaints.
I'm trying to butter up John DeLynn so he'll do research with me. Can you tell? Is it working? I'm just kidding.
I'd be happy to talk to him if you want me to introduce you to him.
Yeah, I love that.
I really like John DeLynn. I think John DeLynn is a good guy. That makes me a terrible person, then so be it. But So so Bill Reel, we did these 6 sessions. And then after the 6 sessions, Bill Reel went online and said, "Look how I won the debate with Jim Bennett."
Yeah.
And I felt like my empathy had sort of been weaponized against me.
Yeah.
That it's like anytime I would say something like, "Well, I can see how you would feel that way," or "Yeah, that's a fair point." It's like, "Look how much ground Jim Bennett gave up." And that drove me crazy. And so there's a 7th session after that where we review all and that's a much more contentious session. I just told Bill, "You've made it a whole lot harder for anybody to have a discussion like this," because I didn't realize that everything I said was being used to score points against the church. I was just trying to have an open conversation with somebody. And I think Bill and I have now reached a point where that's not really an issue anymore.
Yeah.
But by the time I did John DeLynn, I think I had already met Robert Reynolds.
Okay.
And Robert called and said he talked to me about this project.
Which,
and
this is crazy because I remember you said this, I think, with Stephen Pinecker. This was years ago because you talked
this was 2019.
John DeLynn, like
6 years
2019. So this has been a project a long time in the making, but keep going.
This has been gestating and evolving and morphing into different things for years. I mean, most of the footage, I'd say like 98% of the footage is at least 5 years old.
Wow.
I mean, we filmed all of these guys. I mean, we have Harry Reid in there. Harry Reid died in 2021.
That's right.
So these are. I mean, one of the criticisms, and I think it's a fair criticism, is that this is a little dated.
It is a little, yeah.
And my wife says, "Please check the grape juice." I'm going to text her and say,
"You already did.
I just did the grape juice.
Give me,
Aha.
awards."
Yeah, I've done the grape juice. So I did the grape juice.
See, I'm hoping, I kind of wish this was on like a Netflix or something because it's really well. Speaking of, you were complimenting my editing. You edited a lot, and when I found that out, I was like, "Wow, Jim's a good editor." Like, because one of my takeaways was this production is just incredible.
Well, one of the difficulties I have here is we've never really defined roles. Like a lot of people introduce me on podcasts as one of the co-producers, and it's like, well, am I a co-producer? I mean, Robert funded the whole thing out of pocket. I mean, he paid for everything out of his own pocket, hired everybody.
And he's a faithful member of the church, by the way.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if people know that or not, because his brother famously is no longer part of the church. And I think, from what I understand, he kind of wanted, because his brother has a documentary, and he kind of wanted to make this one for like himself.
Well, Robert
I guess.
made that documentary too. Robert's the producer of the Believer documentary. That's all about.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
So he was involved with both, but he wanted to make a more.
I wormed my way into it to some degree, because initially he just called me and he says, "I want to have you in the documentary." And I'm like, "Okay, great. I'd love to be in it." But then he started saying, "My biggest challenge I have right now is that I don't really have anybody to edit it." He says, I've used a bunch of Hollywood editors who don't really understand the material, and some Latter-day Saint editors that just aren't very good. And I said, I have some experience here. I would love to take a crack at this. So I was essentially the lead editor on the project for several years. But I balk when somebody says, "Oh, so you edited this?" Because I think it was either at the end of last year or the beginning of this year, the decision was made to turn it into a docu-series. Because she says, "Has it spilled over? Because it smells very burnt down there." And I'm saying, "No, it had not spilled over. And you guys are my witnesses."
I didn't see anything. You just got up. You could just walked around in a circle for all I know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. That's good cover. I can show her this later.
Yeah. You have an alibi.
I have an alibi. So I said I would love to take a crack at editing this. And so I was the lead editor for probably 4 or 5 years, really. But at the beginning of this year, the decision was made because previously it was a 2-hour documentary. We were talking about shopping it around to Netflix and everything else. She's still asking me questions.
And then you guys decided to split it into multiple parts.
The series, and it was kind of a group decision that you need an editor that can take this further than I can. You need an editor that really is skilled enough to make this look good and make this look really professional.
Yeah, but I remember, didn't you say some of the episodes were basically exactly how you edited it, and they might have
the first 2 episodes particularly.
Hey, the second episode's my favorite, so
well,
kudos.
yeah. Well, so and at one point, so one of the only times we actually screened this in its entirety was at a Faith Matters retreat, and I think this was early 2020,
okay,
maybe right before COVID.
Okay,
we screened it, and it went over like a lead balloon. It was just so because the way I had put it together was it was sort of front loaded with, here are all the doctrinal problems, right? So we had lots of people talking about the Book of Mormon, and then lots of people talking about the Book of Abraham, and then lots of people talking about polygamy. And not really
just front loaded it with all the anti-talking points.
The problems, and then sort of told the personal stories in the second half of it. But what it did was sort of make you had to suffer through the exposition before you got the good stuff. And Robert, bless his heart, halfway through, as it was clear that everybody in the room, and a lot of people in the room were people who were in the documentary at the time. And they were just not having it. They were just not responding to it. So Robert flips the lights on and goes, I get the sense that you guys are not really enjoying this.
In the middle of it? Like it wasn't
in the middle of it. And I was like,
wow.
Robert, let it keep going because we're getting to the good stuff. But that was really helpful because what that taught us was you can't do it that way. It all has to be good stuff.
Okay.
And so if you're going to address the difficulties with the Book of Mormon or the Book of Abraham, and we ended up essentially leaving the Book of Abraham out of it altogether.
Yeah, I know. I don't remember really
just because there really wasn't anything in it. The way we made the Book of Mormon work, I think, I brought in my father. I brought in, the stories. But the idea that came up after that, and I felt a little arrogant suggesting this, but I said to Robert, Robert, I think you need to have sort of as a narrative through line, Jeremy Runnels and Jim Bennett. That you have to have, the story of how we both looked at both of these things and came to different conclusions, and then have us come together at the end of that, because that makes this a narrative and not a data dump.
Yeah.
And so
it worked well.
So then I sort of injected myself into I was in it before then, but not nearly to the extent that I'm in it now, particularly in those first 2 episodes. But we went and we called Jeremy, and Jeremy and I sat down and had a long conversation, which snippets of it made it into the thing. But but there was never a line of, okay, well, you're just the editor, Jim, or because here I am sort of suggesting content, and here I conducted a couple of the interviews. I conducted, Robert was not in the room actually when I filmed myself. I got a friend of mine with the camera and filmed myself. Robert was out of town. I filmed Paul Reeve, conducted that interview. I went to the BYU protest and conducted the interview with the girl that
The one for the famous picture under
Yeah.
Brigham Young.
I met her at the protest and got permission to film her. And I went with Robert to conduct a lot of the interviews, but a lot of them were already in the can even before I got there. So some of these are 7, 8 years old. And, but I don't really know how to define that role because, like, for instance, the later episodes, episode 9, for instance, I think is the one on personal revelation and prophetic fallibility.
Yeah, I think so.
The current editor did that without any input from me pretty much at all.
Okay.
So I mean, the lines are very fluid in terms of who did what.
So it kind of started with you and blends into.
It blends. Yeah. I mean, I can see my fingerprints on a lot of it. I can see my fingerprints on both of the LGBTQ episodes. I can see my fingerprints on the race episode, of the high demand religion episode, the women's episode. I think I don't see as much of my editing fingerprints on that one. He did some really fun stuff with that. It was really kind of fun, actually. I was nervous because, I'm kind of giving up my baby a little bit, and I felt a little territorial on it.
Yeah.
But when he started coming back with the actual episodes, I was like, this is the guy. This is the right guy to be doing this. And he added a lot of the B-roll, added a lot, I mean, I think I came up with sort of the bones of it to a large degree, but even there, it was collaborative.
Yeah.
Robert was involved every step of the way. And the new editor, his name is Trent Jones, really took the ball and ran with it. And, so I get uncomfortable when people say, well, you were the editor. It's like,
you helped edit.
I was part of the team.
You were featured in.
Throughout all of this, we've had an email chain going for 6 years.
Wow.
And I've always been on every email. So I have been
your
right at the
fingerprints
heart of this.
On this, for sure.
Yeah, but so that's a very long, messy answer. But I'm going way back to what you said initially. This was designed, I think, ultimately, to help people who want to stay figure out a way to stay. And I mean, I think that's the primary objective. And I think the secondary objective was to show empathy and respect and kindness to people who leave. Because one of the biggest complaints and the biggest difficulties that people who leave have is this idea that they can't leave with dignity, and that they're ostracized and they're shunned. I mean, that varies from family to family and individual to individual. But, I do this podcast with my mission buddy who has left. And that's his biggest complaint is that it's like nobody has ever asked me why I left. Nobody has, all these people have just cut me out of their lives. And he talks about getting a letter from the church when his resignation was finally processed. And he says, all they would have had to do is say, we're so grateful for your long service to the church. And it was like, you're gone. Fine. You happy now? You're out. And, so.
Is that an official letter from the church? Is that locally written, or who writes that?
No, it says you get an official. I don't know. You do get an official letter from the church, I think, but I think it's just kind of a form letter. Right. That's just, we have processed your resignation sort of thing.
Right.
And I don't know what he expected from that but it seemed just very, so John DeLynn was initially asked on Reddit, by somebody who'd left, John, are you happy with how you've been presented here? Because they thought we made John into an apologist. And John's response, I think, was just really brilliant. It was, look, is this everything that I would want it to be? No. Is this the best depiction of people who have left from a faithful perspective? says by a mile it is. And John did a 5-hour, talk about long form, man. John did a 5-hour episode on this. He interviewed Janice Spangler, who's in the documentary in the women's section, Julie Hanks, who is not in the documentary, and then a guy, I don't remember what his name was. He's a former bishop, but he's left. And they had nice things to say about it. But as they talked about it, the guy who had left, not John, said, I went and put this through ChatGPT. I put the transcripts of it through ChatGPT. And I asked it, how many times do they celebrate people staying versus times they celebrate people leaving? Like they used as an example of both me in the moment where I say, I looked at all these things and felt like I could stay in the church, and it even strengthened my faith. And I think that's a valid choice. Jeremy looked at all these things and felt he had to leave the church, and I think that's a valid choice. And they said that was a celebration of both.
I was going to say, I don't remember any celebrations, but I guess if you're counting those.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, rah, rah, here's a birthday cake. Right. But just saying it's okay to leave. What they found were there were 20 instances where people say, hooray for staying. And 5 instances, and I didn't even know what they were, but 5 instances of people saying, hooray for people who leave. And this guy said, that's a 4-to-1 ratio. When have we ever gotten anything close to that in anything official from the church?
Well, this wasn't official from the church.
No, it wasn't by any stretch of the imagination. But I think there are people who have left who recognize that this is a positive step in terms of getting people who have left and people who stay to be able to build bridges with each other, to talk to each other, not to demonize each other. Right. Because you see that, you see demonization from both sides. You absolutely see it from the other side as well, but you see it within the church too. Everybody who's left they've all left to sin. They're all terrible people. And whereas the people who've left say everybody in is just brainwashed, they're all in a cult, they're all terrible. And both of those things are really pretty much nonsense.
Yes.
And I think everybody will be happier and everybody benefits when we talk to each other and we treat each other as people, not as stereotypes.
Amen. In fact, that's been the theme of this live stream, right? Is building bridges. And I think what you're trying to do is build perhaps one of the most difficult bridges, which is inside to people who just left the church, outside, inside out, your podcast.
But I'm really, really proud of Inconvenient Faith, because I think it's not perfect. People will criticize it from a number of places. Like my podcast partner said, look, it was good, but it's entirely American. There isn't a single international voice in it. And, my podcast partner's from Yorkshire, England, was a bishop in Scotland and now lives in Canada. He's like, the international church experience, there's none of it.
That explains his accent, by the way.
Yeah. He's from Yorkshire. Has a very, very deep accent, and deep voice. But that's a very valid criticism. And and then there are other. I think one guy complained. He's like, you need to release the full interview for all of these Exmos because you're clearly just cutting them up and misrepresenting them. And it's like, first of all, no, we're not. We're not misrepresenting them. I remember, for instance, one time when Robert and I, very rarely can I think of any times where we significantly disagreed. In fact, I can't think of any times where the disagreements were significant. But I was editing that first Book of Mormon episode. And, and back then it was not an episode, it was a section. Like was divided into sections. We had a section break.
Big, long documentary.
And I tried to create some segues between the sections that now don't really exist anymore because each episode is a separate thing. But it was John DeLynn taking down Jeffrey R. Holland. You know, Jeffrey R. Holland's famous talk about
The musket.
if you leave the church, you have to crawl over
Oh,
or
that
under
talk. Yeah. Safety
or
for the
around
soul.
the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
To do that. And I have always found Elder Holland's talk, that specific talk, to be really, really powerful and really inspiring.
Probably one of the best talks of all time.
Yeah.
It's a top
so
5.
I had sort of framed that as Elder Holland kind of got the last word, and this was kind of the smackdown. And Robert came back and said, John Dehlin thinks that talk is awful and has an awful lot to say about that, and we need to include that. And so I went, okay.
So you went and interviewed him again?
I went in and edited that section and only sort of put in a piece of John Dehlin, but then sort of let Elder Holland smack him around. And it was Robert who came back and said, that's not fair to John's position. John has more to say. We need to fully represent what John is saying here. So if you go back and watch it, John Dehlin gets the last word on that talk.
Oh, okay.
I don't find John's position more persuasive than Jeffrey Holland's, but that was Robert's decision of, if we're going to accurately reflect the position here, we've got to steel man it. We can't straw man it.
You know, that's interesting to hear that insight. But I think there's knowledge is power. You know, when you hear the full steel-manned position of people, you can be informed. I don't think people need to be afraid of, of finding out what John Dehlin's full position is, right. And then you can compare that and be like, I think people are smart. So,
I mean, that's actually one of the things that people don't read. I think so much of the demonization, at least from inside the church, of people outside, is coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of, okay, so if you walk into your bishop's office and you say, Bishop, I've just discovered that Joseph Smith translated the Kinderhook plates and said that they were the story of a descendant of Ham. And it turns out that the Kinderhook plates are proven to be a fraud.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. Okay, what are the odds that your bishop is the kind of scholar who will even know what the Kinderhook plates are?
Probably pretty low.
Pretty low. And so here's the bishop hearing this, and the bishop saying, okay, I've got to say something that's going to keep this person in the church. This person is in a crisis of faith, but I don't know what the heck the Kinderhook plates are. I don't have any idea how to deal with this. And so the only thing they can do is sort of bear their testimony and condemn, well, where did you hear this? You heard this from anti-Mormons, and they don't have your best interests at heart, and so it becomes this sort of fear-based thing, and one of the reasons why I am still a member of the church after I encountered all of this is because when I went in to my stake president, who also happened to be my uncle, that I lived with. I lived with my uncle in Bel Air, California, while I went to the University of Southern California, which
You're
was
like
weird.
The Prince of Bel Air.
You
lived with your uncle in Bel Air.
My aunt and uncle always said they lived in the white trash area of Bel Air because what Bel Air, when it was first built, was just all tract housing, and everybody that moves in there now tears down the old houses and builds the palaces. But this house was a fairly modest house, but it was in a beautiful location up on the top of a hill. And they did eventually, before they died, tear it down and build a palace.
Ooh,
but
nice.
when I lived there, it doesn't matter. But I would go into my uncle and say, Uncle Howard, what do I do with the Kinderhook plates? And his response was, I don't know anything about the Kinderhook plates. Let's look into this. Let's do it together.
Good response.
And I did the same thing with my father, who was equally open to the discussions. I mean, for anybody worried about the Kinderhook plates,
Yeah.
It's very clear, first of all, the statement that is in Joseph Smith's name is part of the history of the church. The history of the church quotes Joseph Smith saying, "I have translated a portion of this record, and it contains a record of the man it was found with. He's a descendant of Ham through the lineage of blah, 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 blah." What you miss is that Joseph Smith never said that. The history of the church was written after Joseph Smith was dead and compiled a bunch of different sources and rewrote them in the first person as if Joseph Smith had said them. So this was taken from a journal entry that was written by William Clayton. And what happened is these guys brought in these plates, and Joseph Smith, there's been plenty of research done on it. There's this one symbol on the plates that looks kind of like a boat. And if you go to the Kirtland Egyptian papers, there is a symbol in the Kirtland Egyptian papers that is translated as a descendant of Ham, blah, 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 blah. And what's very clear as to what happened is these guys brought in these plates. Joseph Smith looked at them and went, "Oh, look at that. That
looks
symbol.
familiar. Yeah.
This is familiar. This is the symbol, and that's what that symbol means. I really think this would be kind of interesting to translate these." And that's it. He never did translate them. There was never any claim that he received any revelation about them. They were completely forgotten within days of them being brought in. And so it all of a sudden, the whole claim that he produced this translation of a fraudulent record, and he's talking about it in the history of the church. It's like there's so many problems with that, and it all breaks down under scrutiny. And to me, it's okay. If I were a con man and I had based my entire con on the idea of finding gold plates that didn't exist and translating these gold plates into a record, the one thing I would never do is acknowledge the validity of any plates anywhere. And because I know that I didn't have any plates, so somebody brings in plates, the last thing I'm going to do is go, "Oh, let me see if I can translate them," because I know I can't translate any plates.
Right.
I'm a con man. So the fact that Joseph Smith was willing to consider the Kinderhook plates even for a moment, I think demonstrates confidence in his prophetic calling. And I now look at that as a sort of faith strengthener.
Faith builder. Look at that.
A faith builder.
Yeah.
So much of church history requires so much context, and it's so difficult to provide. It's so easy to make a charge like Joseph Smith was a pedophile. He married a 14-year-old girl. And it's like, okay, look at this. Look at the context of this. Look at what happened here. There is a great deal of evidence suggesting that, first of all, Heber C. Kimball approached Joseph Smith and said, "I want to be sealed into your lineage. I want my daughter sealed to you."
Right.
It was proposed by the father. It was not Joseph Smith lecherously going after a young girl. And then when the sealing takes place, this young girl writes a really heartbreaking poem. The title of the poem is "For Eternity Only." And the theme of the poem, are you familiar with this poem that Helen Mar Kimball wrote?
I'm not sure. Keep
So
going.
yes, she wrote a poem called "For Eternity Only," and I can't quote from it, but the theme of it is, "I was told this was for eternity only. I was promised that this wouldn't affect my life now, that I would be married to this man in the eternity, but what it has done is, because I am married to this man in eternity, none of my peers will have any interest in me. No boys want to date me. This has really screwed up my life. here in mortality. So it's not by any means a ringing endorsement of what happened here, but it is very strong evidence that this was never a sexual relationship, and that
Right.
neither Helen Mar Kimball nor Joseph Smith ever saw this as ever being a sexual relationship. So when you make this charge against Joseph Smith, it's very easy to make the incendiary charge, but it requires so much more context to understand it. And it doesn't even fully absolve Joseph Smith. Polygamy is a mess. There's no question polygamy is a mess. And that's the one episode of An Inconvenient Faith where you watch it, and it's like there isn't a tidy little summation where you could say, but see, it all worked out. It just is.
Well, it's still something even today that is hotly debated.
It's hotly debated. It's one of the reasons I think why polygamy denial is becoming so popular. But
Right.
Polygamy denial, to me, it's like, guys, think this through. Because by absolving Joseph Smith, you're throwing the entire church under the bus.
Yep.
Because if Joseph Smith never practiced polygamy and Brigham Young
Clearly
forged Section 132,
yeah.
then Brigham Young is a complete and total monster. And the church is beyond any kind of a fraud. So
Right.
it's just like, guys, there isn't an easy answer. There isn't an easy out. And if you try to figure out some way to let Joseph Smith off the hook,
it becomes kind of messy.
It's messy.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is the thing. This is the thing. This is the whole element of this. It's the reason I wrote my book, because I think the way you get through this is not just accept fallibility, accept mistakes. You embrace it. You embrace the messiness. You embrace it and say, this is what mortality is all about, guys.
Yeah.
This is the reason we came here. We came here to screw up. We came here to learn the good from the evil from our own experience by making mistakes, by screwing up. That's why we need an atonement. I mean, people talk about this as a test, and I kind of like to think of it more as an education. I mean, there are tests that are part of your education, but we came here to get an education. We came here to learn good from evil for ourselves. And our tuition, essentially, is what the Savior pays. He pays the price for it. He pays the cost of it. And so we should expect everything to be messy. We should expect the church to be messy, not just individuals. We should expect fallibility in the church. That's if we don't expect that, then we believe that agency is extracted from our leaders.
Yeah.
That there's some point when they can no longer make a mistake. And people argue for these kinds of limited fallibility ideas. A prophet can make a mistake, but that just means he can forget your birthday or spell your name wrong. It doesn't mean that he can stand at a pulpit and say things that are not true.
Well, it is the Church of Jesus Christ and the Church of the Latter-day Saints. It's a double possessive. And
right.
I personally don't think that Jesus Christ is a micromanager on purpose for the very reasons that you said, that we're supposed to, it's the true and living church.
Right.
It's
you get it. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So I want you to publish this book because I want to read it. And
I have a whole chapter called True and Living.
Oh, do you? Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Well, because every person that stands up in testimony meeting and say, I know the church is true, is essentially misquoting the Lord. The Lord has never said this is the only true church. Never. Not once. He says this is the only true and living church. And because you can find truth in other churches, you can find truth in literature, you can find truth in academia. Truth is all over the place. We're supposed to circumscribe it all into one great whole. We don't ever make the claim that all truth is found in the church. But this is both a true church and a living church. We have the living power of God. But like all living things, we learn and grow and make mistakes along the way.
Yep.
And the church is a living organism. The church is going through the same kind of life cycle that the rest of us go through. And we all learn, and we hopefully are much wiser near the end of our lives than we are at the beginning. And the church has had to stumble, and the church has had to make mistakes, and leaders have had to make mistakes. And that's the process. I mean, that's not a bug. That is a feature. That's the reason it exists. I mean, once you can sort of embrace that, so many of the churches, of the objections to the church, just sort of vanish. They just go away. The instant you can say, yeah, Brigham Young was a prophet. Brigham Young absolutely was a prophet and was called by God to save the church and lead us to Zion and, hold the church together after the prophet Joseph Smith was assassinated.
And reestablish
Brigham
the
Young
endowment.
was a huge racist. Both of those things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go through all these weird gyrations to try. I mean, I hate the phrase mental gymnastics because it's a cliche, but it's a true cliche.
Yeah.
I mean, the minute you could say, well, yeah, Brigham Young was a racist and he was wrong on that.
Yeah.
I mean, then you move on.
Yeah.
You're just like, well, okay. I mean, so many of the problems of the church can vanish if you can embrace fallibility.
Right.
Have I told my David O. McKay story? We've gone really long here, but have I told my David O. McKay missionary story?
You've told it to me, and I think you've told it on Word Radio. So why don't we let's end with the David O. McKay story and kind of use that as a wrap up. So right. Let's hear it real quick, and then
I've rambled on way too long.
No, this is good. This is good stuff. I appreciate your time.
My David O. McKay story is I grew up as the great grandson of David O. McKay. I still am the great grandson of David O. McKay. I'm also the great grandson of Heber J. Grant. I didn't really realize that until I was older because Heber J. Grant had been dead a whole lot longer.
Did you? Little aside, real quick. President Nelson just turned 101, and I read that he has met every prophet from Heber J. Grant up.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, my father had met every prophet from Heber J. Grant up.
Oh, okay.
But my father died 9 years ago. My father is the same age. My father went to high school with Henry Eyring.
Oh, okay. So
they're high school buddies.
So was he in like his late 80s when he passed?
He was 80. He was almost 83.
Oh, only 83.
He was 82.
So
right. He died in 2016. He was born in 1933.
Okay.
So yeah, he was 82. He wasn't quite yet 83. He was going to turn 83.
That's crazy though. Heber J. Grant. Oh, that's anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
you were
fine.
Great grandson of grandson of David O. McKay.
Great grandson of David O. McKay.
Great grandson.
And this was a huge cause of
stress, right? You had to live up to the name.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, my middle name is McKay. My name is James McKay Bennett.
Oh, cool.
And
good name.
My brother's name is Robert McKay Bennett. And they were going to name me James, I think either James Richard or James Wallace. After Wallace is my father's, and my grandmother on my mother's side is Jimmy will be very sad if he grows up without the McKay name. He'll be very jealous of his brother without the McKay name. So I am James McKay. And I just felt tremendously inadequate because I thought, okay, he's a prophet. And my image of what a prophet is very much like many people's image of what a prophet is, that essentially the prophet is the next best thing to Jesus and just short of Jesus, if that. I mean, these are perfect, wonderful, perfect men, and I knew I was nowhere near that. I was a schlub.
Yeah.
I felt like an idiot. I remember hearing a story in primary about David O. McKay in his house in Huntsville. And he heard a sound outside the window that turned out to be the tree scraping against the window in the wind. And he was very scared, and he got up and knelt down and heard a voice say to him, "Nothing will hurt you," and got back in bed. I had been in that bedroom. I was in that bedroom as a young child and thought I would imitate David O. McKay. And like, okay, I'm going to kneel down in this bedroom, and is the voice going to talk to me? And the voice didn't talk to me. And my sense was, well, why would it talk to you, kid? You're a dork. You're not David O. McKay. You're just his stupid, mess up great grandson. And I mean, this was a very real part of I just sort of internalized this my whole life. And then I served my mission in Scotland, which is where the McKays came from. And I was assigned to go serve in Thurso, Scotland, which is at the very top of the British mainland. It's right at the edge of the North Sea. You can't go any further north if you're on the island of Great Britain. And there was nobody in the Thurso ward, pretty much. There were 3 people. There was a primary kid. There was an old woman who led the singing, and there was a mentally handicapped guy. And the missionary couple that was there approached the mentally handicapped guy and says, "You're so faithful. What keeps you so faithful?" And his answer was, "I didn't have anything else to do."
Nice accent.
That's good. I do a pretty good Scots accent.
Yeah, that's really good.
And so we got the idea that we were going to do a fireside, not call it a fireside. We were going to do a public lecture about David O. McKay. They thought, we've got David O. McKay's great-grandson up here. We're in Thurso. Maybe people will come to this. And I don't know why, but we never did do the lecture. That never materialized. But what did happen is that my mother sent me a copy of David O. McKay's missionary journal. And I read David O. McKay's missionary journal while I was in Thurso, Scotland. And it was a revelation beyond all revelations. And the revelation was that David O. McKay was a really lousy missionary. He was homesick, missed his girlfriend. I was missing my girlfriend, who dumped me right after I got home.
Oh, man.
Which was the greatest thing that has ever happened to me, but that's another story. But he's missing his girlfriend. He's like, "It's raining today. I'm not going to go out." Well, it rains every freaking day in Scotland. Every day. Now, sometimes it rains for 5 minutes. Sometimes it rains all day. But every day it rains in Scotland. And he would take days off and go tour whiskey factories in Glasgow. And he said things that were like racist. Like, these are ugly, haggard people. These are, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, because he also was trying very hard to be a good, faithful believer, but he was wrestling with depression. Never in my life had I felt more like David O. McKay. I was like, oh, his experience is really very much like mine. The other thing is that he didn't baptize a single person his entire mission. Part of that was that he was pulled into mission leadership fairly early into his mission, and so most of his time was spent administratively. He didn't do a lot of proselyting, but he didn't baptize anybody. He was very frustrated and homesick, and on and on and on and on. And that was just such an eye-opener for me, because instead of thinking of him as this Greek god on Mount Olympus, it was, he started there, and then he became David O. McKay. If he can start there and become David O. McKay, there's hope for Jimmy Bennett. It was like, oh gosh. And that's such a more compelling story. The story of Joseph Smith is so much more compelling when you realize how many times he screwed up, when you realize how difficult it was for him to navigate all this, all of these stories become human stories. And, have you heard the cliche, the church has to be true or the missionaries would have ruined it long ago?
Yes.
It's the fact that all of us who screw up and are human and have all these weaknesses and mistakes can build something as magnificent and glorious and wonderful as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and bless so many lives in the process. That is such a more inspiring story than the false story of, well, some of these men were born perfect and never make mistakes and float down from the heavens to bless us with their wisdom.
Yeah.
It's just not, that story doesn't build faith, ultimately. That story destroys faith. The true story ultimately builds faith because people can recognize themselves in the story. I can fit into that story. I can't fit into the story of the perfect people.
Yeah.
So
it's a journey that we're all on. And
correct.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you for your time. Thank you for.
And again, you didn't get a chance to edit me.
Yeah, this time I didn't get a chance to edit you. Yeah.
I even said the word for male genitalia. And you couldn't bleep it out.
You did, yeah. My younger viewers don't watch this episode.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's been great. So Peacemakers, building bridges. I certainly think you are doing that and putting forth a good effort to try and do that in a place that, I think of what Jesus says, which is to love thine enemies, and that means the people that are the most difficult for us to love are the people Jesus is specifically telling us to love. And sometimes we can think of people who left the church as an enemy in a way, perhaps because, they're abandoning something that we hold dear or we have experienced to be true. And I think it's important that you are actively trying to build a bridge between members inside and outside of the church on that border. And I think you're speaking to a lot of people who need to hear your message. And the summary of all this is people, if you disagree with Jim Bennett, you don't have to listen to Jim Bennett. You don't have to follow him on Twitter. There's people
and
that
please don't.
Yeah, and please don't. He says,
me, just leave me alone.
And if you are going to interact with him, make sure you put 2 T's for Bennett, everyone.
Yes.
It's not that hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like after my last conversation with Jacob, I went over there and all of the comments on Jacob's channel were just thrashing me up, down, and sideways. And I thought, there's just absolutely nothing I can do that would be productive here. I'm just going to let this go. But the thing that I could not let go is that so many people were spelling Bennett with 1 T. Yeah. One guy spelled Bennett Bennit.
Oh.
What the heck is that?
Bleep, bleep.
Come on, guys. Come on.
You should have just been like, oh man, this Jim Bennett or Jim Bennett is sounds like an interesting.
Whenever
guy.
I see it with 1 T, I think it's Jim Bennett.
Bennett. Yeah. That's funny.
And it's the reason. Like my wife particularly loves Pride and Prejudice. You ever read Pride and Prejudice?
Have I read it? No. I've seen one of the movies.
Yeah, I've seen the movies. It's a beautiful story. I've seen the Colin Firth PBS version. That seems to be the definitive version.
Yeah.
But I can't read the book because Mr. Bennett, Eliza Bennett.
Oh, yeah.
1 T.
Oh, yeah.
It's just nails on a chalkboard to me. It's just,
So everyone, if you do want to follow him, he's on Twitter. He has the Inside Out podcast, which is a great place to hear all of his thoughts and stories and stuff. It's really cool. But yeah, and the message here is to agree to disagree, especially on a day like today when we had terrible news about Charlie Kirk. And I think everyone is rightfully
a little concerned. The Charlie Kirk news, I don't know what it's going to do to us nationally. I really am afraid of what it's going to do to us nationally. It feels different from other kinds of things like this. I hope that it brings us together within the church. Yeah. I hope members of the church can say, okay, if we ever needed to heed President Nelson's call to be peacemakers, it's now.
Yep. And that's what we're trying to do. So thank you everyone for tuning in. This is Ether's Elephant, the live stream, and we'll catch you in the next one. Be sure to subscribe for some more fun stuff coming up. You'll want to be there to check it out, but we'll see you in the next one.